Hello.
Well, hi, Ethel.
Oh, hi, everyone.
Yep. Hello. Hi. All right. So I can see and hear Seema, Ira. I heard Louisa. Ethel.
Yeah,
Hi. Okay. Um,
I
Left
think
Shelley.
there's Shelley, right? Yeah, okay. I think we're all here, are we?
what about Patrick?
Hail, hail, the gang's all here.
Okay. Um, let me just see if Patrick is joining. Um, okay, we can go ahead and get started. Maybe hopefully Patrick will join. I'll just respond to him. Uh,
Okay,
okay, let me share I'll share the document. And then we can go through what folks have come up with. One second. Um, Ema, do you want to start with the SRO stuff while I'm pulling this up?
I mean, the SRO stuff, I don't have like a list of all the SROs or anything, but I have the stuff that you sent along with a bunch of legal articles sort of detailing some of the work that needs to happen. But I think that's more of like I was thinking just like a one-liner.
Pull up, yeah, okay.
Seema, I think if I'm not mistaken, and Shelley would say that I mean, I was involved in much of the work on the SROs, and so there is a great deal with it that they have been legalized in many, many respects. And so there is a great deal of, so to speak, information and material and potential. I think also, Shelley, I think when the zoning, also the new zoning plan of 59th up to 110th zone, that also included the SROs.
No,
So a lot of that does exist. It doesn't mean it's being utilized in the best way.
I could be wrong, but my understanding was that the City of Yes legislation uh, took away the zoning restrictions for new SROs, but there were other places in mainly the multiple dwelling law that still prohibit new SROs. The ones
Yes,
that
there
exist are
is.
grandfathered.
Yeah, there are some of that with the multiple dwelling, but yes, you're right that the big study, the most recent one, did try to make a favorable look at utilizing SROs.
Right. So I think we
That's a
just
big
want to
thing.
take it one step further and actually allow for new SROs.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. This
exactly.
is what it's there. It's been there over decades, and we could re-recommend and identify.
Yeah. And Ethel, if you want to share, I know you mentioned you have a big report. If you want to share that, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I'm gonna find it. I've got the stuff yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay, can people see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, yeah, Ethel, if you wanna go ahead with what you have to share.
No, I don't, no, I don't have the SRO stuff, but reading what's in front, I printed out your one pager, that you've given us, Tabitha, I think.
Uh-huh. Yep.
So the first one, I was not able to meet with SEMA before our meeting. I was hoping to do so, but I do have a comment about what this means, what we're talking about is this particular sentence, which has a lot of hope, I mean, or places to look at. Why is this something that we're putting first? What do we want to see? Because I think we also talked, I think someone maybe, I think it was Tabitha, mentioned we should be looking at the playgrounds next to schools, any kind of parking lots. And I mean, I have some reluctance about that. Why would we want to take
Yeah,
away open
these are
space?
in no, so first of all, I thought these
Oh,
are in no particular order. This is just
Oh, okay. Yeah,
as it
yeah,
stands
gotcha.
now.
yeah,
This is
I
just a
just want to
brain.
remind everybody that many of the playgrounds are mapped parklands, which is a different issue.
Right, right. So maybe there are some real constraints here and we're not going to be doing all of this.
Yeah, so I guess this bullet point, I guess the idea here was just to identify any city controlled parcels in the district that could possibly be used for housing. It was open-ended. And here we've just named some examples of city controlled lands. So it was neither a suggestion that of, that we had to include any of these things, but we
Yeah,
thinking is that we should look and see in our district what are the city controlled parcels, and if those are appropriate, we
Can,
um
can I
Do
jump in?
we have
yeah,
any
go ahead.
specifics to narrow it down? Because this can be huge.
yes,
And there are things like the police station on 82nd Street between Columbus and Amsterdam,
right.
which has a parking lot next to it. But
Can I jump
when
in?
you think of all the problems with the police parking on the street and not in the parking lot, um, there are things that politically are not going to get done.
Right.
Yep.
And so I'm just wondering if we can narrow this down a bit.
Okay, Seema, go ahead,
So I
please.
did take a look at this, and unfortunately, I did it in a way that is difficult to share. I basically put everything onto a Google Maps list, which I can send to you all. But basically on that list, I took a look at every library, every fire department, every police department that wasn't already built over. So for instance, the post office on Columbus and 67th I didn't include because the Millennium Tower is above it, but I did include the not the Bloomingdale, what's it called, the planetarium post office. I have a slew of schools. There are like 20 schools here. Again, I went through each one and looked at what was above them. I think they're available for development. Whether or not we want to develop is another question, but sort of in line with what's happening at the Bloomingdale Library, some model like that is what I was thinking as a reason for them to be on this list.
Do you really? I mean, the Bloomingdale thing is a major new thing, and I'm not sure that it's a model for us. I mean,
Why not?
well, I think also, well, in some of what that we have here, the first thing I would say is, yeah, maybe let's look at parking lots. But I wouldn't like to necessarily focus on, let's say, playgrounds or open space next to schools that kids could go out in.
Unless I'm
As
looking at the wrong
another
list, that's not on the
example.
list. So we're not even talking about those.
Well,
Am I looking at a different list?
add this adjacent school lot to the Euler, that question in
That
the
that is
Bloomingdale
Well,
project.
that's
that's
just,
a specific comment about the Bloomingdale project.
and that's only for for development rights, not for actually taking the school down. I would not ever think of putting PS 163 in play as a physical building. And I
Well,
don't
I'm
think
sorry,
anybody
that
would be, I
wasn't
think,
clear.
yeah,
That
I think they
wasn't
have to,
clear.
I think to do it, they need to make it part of the zoning lot, not part of the building lot.
Right, Right, I found that therefore, thank you, because that was not clear and
Yeah.
seemed rather a negative to me at many planning points.
I think we also have to look at this from what is possible in a reasonable
Right.
time span, because a lot of these things require 5 to 10 years minimum
Right.
to be realized. What can be realized in 5 years? And 5 years is still a very tight time span. And a lot of these require a temporary city facility to be built somewhere else, such as they've talked about on Bloomingdale. But there's actually retail space available on the various avenues. But you get further down and that swing space doesn't exist. So then you start to look at really 10-year timelines. And I don't think anybody wants to look at, 10 years is a long time.
Yep.
I mean, I guess the way I was thinking about this is, let's put all of the ideas on the table.
Yeah.
Obviously, some of them are going to be more realistic than others, but why not just put everything that we can think of on this list?
Yeah,
And
well,
not
certainly,
constrain ourselves by time, or if we're constraining ourselves, maybe there's like one category that is 0 to 5 years, and the next category that's 6 years plus or something.
I mean, certainly if you have something like the police station parking lot, you can kick them out of there for 2 years, 3 years, and they're going to be back. That's not a big problem because there's no other facility that needs to be relocated and they can actually do an overbuild. So that's not a hard one to do. To do that on 100th Street, I think is much more complex.
Oh, boy.
You also have the fire
Of
station
course.
there. And if you have the library going at the same time as anything going across the street, then the logistics are awful for traffic and for construction.
Absolutely.
Also, while we're seeking to build, we don't, I think, want to in a community to fill places only with buildings. We need planning. We need open spaces. We need adjacent spaces that are not filled necessarily with buildings, but with other kinds of needs, including whether it's trees, whether it's other kinds of a natural need, environmental need. You can't, I mean, do we really want every space to be filled with buildings? With what are some of the adjacent needs that people need other than living in buildings?
Yeah, I mean, I agree, we don't not want buildings everywhere, but this list would be a place where we're proposing sites to build a building. So for example, we're not going to suggest building housing in Central Park, that's part of our district, right? By leaving that off the list, we're saying that we don't want buildings, in parks or other places, right? Or in a school playground or something. So yeah, so as we're putting this list together, we're taking into account everything, whether it's the environment, transit, all the other factors that we would want to consider when proposing a construction project. So yeah, there are city controlled parcels that not have a building on them. Doesn't mean we should suggest all of them, right? I guess the point of this exercise is to identify potential places and then decide if you want to put them on the list. So for example,
Sorry.
So for example, like last week, there was that city-owned parcel that I mentioned, and then you guys said, "Oh, they're already building something there." So then we didn't put it on the list because it's moot, right?
The only 3 city parcels that didn't have a use on them 10 years ago all have uses now. Obviously 96th Street and both on 108th Street. So open city land is not an option for us.
Right.
It's not an option in many parts of the city anymore. And it's getting rarer and rarer. Typically they're doing things like taking sanitation spaces or things like that and relocating.
Yeah. I had the same experience because you can look through city-owned parcels and you can sort it by community district. And I just looked through, seven, and there weren't that many parcels.
Right.
They're all current city facilities. So once you take that away, if it's at all necessary, and I think they all are, you need to temporarily replace it. And at least today, it's possible to get swing space for many of those uses. But for example, about 10 or 15 years ago, when they talked about either redeveloping what's now the 450 PS 452 building or the PS 199 building, there was swing space in some of the office building and former warehouse buildings on West End, which doesn't exist anymore. So those kind of things are far harder.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So Seema said she has a list. It's hard to share. Maybe Seema, if you could, as a way forward, um, maybe just find a way to populate those sites in a document or in this document.
Yeah, tell me what's best. Should I just do it as a bullet point list, or I was doing it on Google Maps because I thought that maybe at some point, we'd
I
want to
think
see it.
Google Maps is great.
Oh,
So-
the way
okay.
that
How about I do
mean, I
this? How
think-
about I share with you all this list? Ira, I could also use your help in terms of looking at the schools. I put in, all the schools I could think of, but I'm sure I'm missing some because I couldn't find like one easy list to work off of. So you might be able to help me.
just go to the community, just go to the community school district 3, you'll find the list of all the schools.
I could help also. I was chair of the school board.
Okay,
Okay.
great.
Well, that was a while ago, but we've added 2 schools or 3 schools since then.
Yeah, but I know them. I've been on the community board.
I've heard.
I'm sorry, are we restricting ourselves only to city-owned land?
No, that's just one of the things we're looking at. That's
Good.
yeah. So Seema, you can, I believe you should be able to edit this document if you wanna put whatever you want to put in this document. That's an option. You can put it at the bottom, you can put it anywhere you want.
Okay. I just requested
think-
edit access. Do you mind asking?
Yeah. I think it should.
And so if everyone has access to this, I can, I can put it in this document, and I'm also just going to put it on the emails. Maybe that's the easiest.
Yeah, hold on. Yeah, okay, now anyone with the link can edit. So you guys can feel free to add stuff to this document. Okay, I think that's good. We'll start with that. Seema will populate that, and then Ira and Shelley will opine on the sites.
Wow.
Okay, and then the Bloomingdale project, we have our way forward. That meeting has not happened yet, but we were going to, compile questions. And then Ira was going to attend that. Ira and others were going to attend that meeting. So
Yeah, I want to see if they're going to bring anything new to the table for a change, other than we don't know what we're doing.
I will be there also.
okay, all right.
When is that meeting? When is that,
Monday.
please?
It's on Monday, yeah. But I believe Seema emailed the information to this group. So if you look in your email,
Okay, I'm
Seema-
sorry I missed that. Sorry, I'll try
No,
again.
no problem. Yeah, just you can look in your email.
It's
but
Monday
yeah,
at 6:30 at the Bloomingdale Library.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, others know more and Tabitha, but allow ADUs in row houses with a separate entrance in historic districts. I'm not quite sure what you mean. I mean,
we can come to
the
that.
whole, I'll let you speak, but the passage of the recent new zoning did extend permit in row house or districts and in certain others in our area to extend into the backyard and move that, so in a way that's taking, it's making more building in what was space, but permitting another bedroom, another thing, so we should
Build out.
maybe look at that. I'm sure that Louisa knows what I'm talking about and can say it better, but I'm very aware of the criticisms that we had about extending parts of buildings, new rooms into the backyards of a number of places in our district that are valued for residential and for other uses.
The whole issue of donuts.
Okay.
Yeah, so,
But the
so,
thing is, I'm sorry, that the 30-foot rear yard was kept in City of Yes, and the other thing is, as to be denoted, there has to be a separate entrance.
Right.
And that isn't the entrance that's kind of under the door. It would be a separate entrance. It really is for the outer boroughs
Yes,
where there is, a car port or something, or a garage that can be
yeah,
transferred to this. There are very few places in the Upper West Side that would meet the criteria for this.
Hmm.
yeah, and the historic district also, it's prohibited in historic districts. As we know, most of the mid-block brownstones in Upper West Side are in historic districts, so
Yes.
that would have to change.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I actually, I'll post it in here, but the specific language that would have to change would be, it's all at the city level, which is, so as long as you don't include the basement, then you would not be breaking the multiple dwelling law, the state law, right? So as long as you don't do that, then it's possible to change this at the city level. And I can share the specific language.
Wait, I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
the bottom level is usually rented out on brownstones. I mean, there's nothing that's necessary to change. It's already permitted to have a separate dwelling unit.
But just not in the historic district. That's the part that would change.
It's
This
very
is part of
typical.
City of Yes?
Yeah.
It
don't
would,
think so.
City of Yes would not preclude, or current or previous zoning does not preclude having a two-family building where one family
Right.
gets the ground floor and the typical three-floor unit above, which is the owner's unit, or two duplexes stacked on top of each other. These are fairly common patterns.
Okay, it was my
Getting rarer
understanding.
and rarer, but common.
Okay, it was my understanding that, um, like to say, take a regular brownstone, right, which is now, owned by, which is one residence, right, that has a separate entrance, as you say, Luisa, under the stairs. In a historic district in the Upper West Side, that family that owns that brownstone could not rent out the ground floor level with using that ground floor door under the stairs as a separate entrance, as a
Sure they
separate dwelling.
Sure they can.
So they can
I would
now.
be very surprised if that went through.
If anybody actually want to do it, it's another issue.
So what you're saying, the law currently allows that?
Yes.
Yes, I mean, certainly in a lot of the outer boroughs where you have a one-family house and people want with 3 floors and people need the income, but generally speaking, and it's not exclusive, covers 100%, but I would say 95% of the people who have one-family houses on the Upper West Side have the income question usually addressed.
Okay.
I do want to raise, but you did remind me when we have this city-owned parcels here. There's also been a lot of effort to bring faith-based organizations into the housing sphere, and I've worked on some of those, and sometimes they generate money when the building is landmarked. I don't want to get into the West Park discussion, but there are a number of churches in the neighborhood that have tremendously insignificant architectural buildings that would be, very well suited for a development site that would also include a new church. They're not where you think they are, but there are some there.
So what are you saying that what's the mixture and how does it affect us in this area? Because I know that there are those kinds of modifications that were sought for the other boroughs, but tell me, give
Well,
us
there are
some
several,
examples.
there are at least two churches that I can think of off the top of my head that are up
Okay,
in Manhattan Valley area, maybe
yeah,
three that um, could easily find temporary space for several years, and then they get a much enhanced space. Like I said, I've worked on some of those as studies. A lot of them don't work. Occasionally, some of them do work. And
but then in those cases, when they come back, are they including additional residential space?
yeah,
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay,
We
The
had it on 90
synagogue on 93rd off Broadway.
exactly. Congregation
Right.
Shareit Tzedek did that, and neighbors tried to get it landmarked. It was not
I
landmarked,
remember.
and they tore it down. They went off-site about 3 years, and now they're back. They have their synagogue within
Yeah.
a tall residential building mid-block.
well,
Ugly. No, sorry.
but in a number of places, and some of the people I've talked to in other places, they're doing it partly out of some of them talk about it out of an obligation to the community, and sometimes an attempt to keep some of their congregation in the neighborhood. So I just throw that out there as
And some
something
use
else.
it, and some use it to have the money to work to repair and to resurrect in many ways their sanctuaries and
Yeah,
have money to function.
right. I'm not going to go. That's why I'm trying to keep away from the West Park
So
discussion.
they're only one of many.
Yeah,
Well,
but
I'm,
I've
I'm sorry. Could we then, given what you're saying, Ira, I'm aware of some of the examples, but you know more, and I suspect Shelley does. It might be good for us to take a look at any or some of the completed examples of what you've described, the change, the incorporation of the church, the addition of any residential and any examples within our neighborhood. And then if there are some 2 or 3 good, interesting, important examples, we could then begin to
well,
look of other places. I mean, you're sort of describing some, but it's not completely clear.
well, they're all going to be controversial, but you can put it
That
not so
I
much
know
in the
that.
Department of Churches. You can just say nonprofit institutions.
Right.
Okay, that's a much better way of putting it.
Okay, right, okay. But I think that could be, of
If we're
importance
talking,
and interest.
yeah, if we're going to talk about city land, we can also talk about nonprofit land.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do we encapsulate this in a succinct bullet
Well,
suggestion?
same way you identify city-owned land, you identify nonprofit land, and then it's up to somebody else to develop the mechanism, to come about with the mechanism to make this possible and to determine what's feasible. We're just trying to identify potential, right?
Yeah, so I'm just trying to think. So
Shouldn't we reach out to, for instance, whatever church or whatever nonprofit before we put them on this list? Make sure that they are interested in being.
We don't put anybody on this list.
Right.
We just identify. I mean, you can do, on Zola, you can identify classes of buildings and do it that way, and who owns them and what they are. A lot of, I obviously, as much as Shelley, I have involvement, or I've had involvement very much on the ground with a lot of our public schools. And I would dare to say that with rare exception, I would probably be shot on site if I came into the meeting. Just like, we got a letter that basically wanted to shoot somebody on site when we looked at glance at a parking lot on 100th Street next to a fire station.
Right, I remember.
So, so this is all controversial. As we know from previous experience, sometimes the mayor actually has to show up to convince some people that he's serious, that the city's serious about something. But the irony of it is, if you can't get some of this stuff done on the Upper West Side, if there's any potential, you're not going to be able to get it anywhere in the city, right?
Okay.
In theory.
Yeah. So
I know.
We are actually land starved, and there are other parts of Manhattan, like Community Board 4, which consisted mainly of warehouses and garages
Right.
that do have many more opportunities, easy opportunities than we do.
Yes.
Well,
Which
understood.
they've been using.
They also have the problem of, well, our land is high value. Okay. Those areas have land that is extremely high value. With that taxi garage next to Hudson Yards is not worth what a parking garage on 107th Street is worth.
yeah, well,
course.
Community Board 4, they actually have a very robust housing plan, which they will be submitting under this Manhattan plan. And you can
Right.
read it, it's online. It's like 100 pages.
It's because they had all this available land.
Yeah, so
that
they're proposing.
gentrified like crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
they're
the
proposing
question-
that. Also, Community Board 8, their board passed a resolution that would convert all of the zoned manufacturing on the Upper East Side to residential.
Yeah, well,
But that passed their board, and they're sending that for the Manhattan plan.
That's not a lot, is it? Or is it?
One piece
It's
of
not a lot. It's
identified,
it's like maybe it's like 20 parcels or something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's not huge.
the one identified manufacturing parcel in CB7 is actually a
Exactly.
critical facility. It's
Yeah.
probably one of the most critical facilities in the city.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
Yeah,
all-
we don't have any. Yeah, that
It's an
that
electrical
change-
plant, right?
Yeah, that would not work.
understatement. Yes,
Yeah, there's no.
there are two of them, but it's all Con Ed
Yeah,
infrastructure.
there's no available manufacturing parcels in our district that could or should be converted.
Tabitha, do you have a sense of what the other boards are submitting as responses? Like, are they just doing a bullet point list? Is it a map? Is it a study?
I don't. So the two I mentioned are just going. I know they're going to send their existing, what they already did, right?
Got it.
So like Community Board 8, their board passed it, and like I said, they're limiting it to just that manufacturing to residential conversion. And then CB4 will have to be updated because it's a couple years old, right? And some of those sites have actually already been, they're either under construction or so. I think what they said in the call was that they were going to take that existing list, excise the parts of it that have already been addressed, and then add some things to it, and then resubmit. But they're proposing a lot of changes in CB4. But like we said, it's a different district, different opportunity scope.
I would like to bring up the Con Ed site that was brushed over. There has to be a solution to it. It's not in use and hasn't been in use. And it's a large site.
The old power plant.
Yeah.
It's a
Wait,
landmark.
You're talking the West End Avenue one? Which one, Shelley?
No, the West End
Yeah.
Avenue, you absolutely cannot touch.
Not on West End Avenue. I'm talking.
Yeah, you don't even know it's
Which
there.
one? Which one, Shelley, are you referring to?
On 110th Street.
Oh, the one on 110.
Oh,
100
that's a substation.
Wait,
Yeah.
110th and what?
I think it's
In
Amsterdam.
Amsterdam.
So- And it's not in use.
That's an interesting one. The two at the south end, you can't touch.
Right. But
But
that one.
if they're not using 110th, that's
It's not in use. We've tried to get it, Wistfish tried to, there was some obstacles, but it can't be forever.
Oh, I know which one. Got it.
And it's a very large space.
It's not in use
investigations
at
like
all?
the Tesla Cybertruck.
What was that?
I don't know.
I don't know who was
Is
talking.
that somebody's AI responding?
Is it really not in use, Shelley? It's decommissioned?
My understanding, it hasn't been in use for years. I'll double check that.
I think that it was a matter of discussion some years ago, I think, in the northern part of our district.
Mm-hmm.
And there was some effort about that piece of land, and then there seemed to be so much concern that they couldn't make it happen. But I think that's one actually to look at, because it really is staying empty. It's not distinguished in any way, nor is it particularly, I think, useful.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something, I mean, if we were to look at it, it's an example that could maybe yield some interesting things that could be tangible.
Love that idea. It's huge.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I added it to the Google Maps list.
Okay.
I think that
And if the city is interested in building, they may be tend to relook at it, as a possibility.
Okay.
Can't hurt.
In that vein, can I ask, so does anyone know about the old Verizon buildings? There's one on Manhattan Avenue. I forget what the cross street is, like 107, 108.
Yeah.
What is that? I mean, it seems like it's functioning, but I'm not sure. Is that
Well, last I heard it functioning, but I'll walk by there and check it out if you want.
okay? I mean, it looks under good repair, so I'm assuming it's still active, but it just is such a weird relic.
Absolutely.
there's also a Verizon building, I think, on 73rd or 74th, Columbus, Amsterdam.
Yes. And that's huge also.
Yeah, this is, I mean, is this current technology, or are they using one floor?
Right, exactly. And could it be moved somewhere else?
Telephone building.
What about the garages on 73rd Street? There's, I think, 3 of them
70.
between Columbus and Amsterdam. They're privately owned, but they're quite extensive. Just throwing it into the mix.
Where are they, Louisa? 73rd and
Between Amsterdam and Columbus, you said.
On the
These
north
things-
side of the street.
These are all things that can be done in that 3 to 5 year time span, if one wanted to do it.
But I
Once-
think that's the minimum that we can possibly be talking about.
Oh, yeah. And 3 to 5 might just be to get in the ground.
So 73rd Street garages between Columbus and Amsterdam. Do we know how those are currently zoned?
Commercial. It's got to be.
Okay, but in terms of, so maybe that's an idea for a spot rezoning to encourage housing development.
I would think that whole block, it's the block that has the planetarium post office on it. The whole
Yeah,
block,
83rd, yeah.
83rd.
Oh,
Yeah.
83rd. Okay, I was
Yeah.
talking to 73rd. Okay.
It has commercial all the way on the whole block. which is unusual, actually. It's got to be zoned commercial. It has
Should-
shops all along it, plus the garages and the post office.
Okay. Okay.
And the
And
PS9 playground.
Well, little snippet of it. The main playground is on 84th.
Pretty big. Okay, you're right.
The playground is just as like a 30-foot strip for the kindergarten kids.
okay, so it's privately owned. You have long-term leases in place, probably, or just someone owns it. What can be done to induce housing construction? I mean, you can
Honey.
upzone it. You can
Honey.
upzone it to with MIH, right?
Well,
Um,
one of the problems with parking garages, and you can see this around our neighborhood, is the new restrictions on requirements for regular inspections on parking garages. So, for example, one of the parking garages, I think on 81st Street or 80th Street, it was closed and now it's being turned into the residential building. Similarly, the parking garage, which is in a relatively new building at 95th and Broadway on
Yes.
95th is closed because it probably looks like it failed inspection as well. And so the parking garages, which used to be low maintenance buildings, particularly after the collapse down on Ann Street, are under far more pressure to be properly maintained. And I'm sure Shelley and I know about poorly maintained parking garages.
I think that as these examples that have just been brought up, I think it would be helpful to 2 or 3 people or knowledgeable to really study the 2 or 3 these examples, to get both the history and the conversion, and just to understand it more. Secondly, just make believe that I really don't care. So I'm now going to say, I that's not the case, but I would say, really, I would, if I'm living in a residential area, why shouldn't it be mixed, diverse? Why should there be a block like the one that Louisa just described? You know, that look, it's got commercial on the whole block. Why isn't that perhaps serving other needs, may be helpful in certain ways? I'm just raising that.
Yeah, it's a good question. I would
Well-
say, yeah, I would say that if you were to change the zoning, not to ban the garage, but just to say, well, you have the option to build housing above this, then you're adding a potential, use for that land parcel for whoever owns it. You're not saying you have to close the garage. And you're also
Yes.
not, and you're not saying you have to build housing. You're just saying that
Yes,
it is now an option for you if it pencils economically. Whereas now, the way it's zoned, it might be the case that it's too expensive to open the garage and do the maintenance and repairs needed. But it also is not economical to convert this to housing, based on the existing or any other business, based on the existing zoning. So it's not a,
what you're saying, I mean, to me, that's interesting and provocative. It was partly what I was trying to look at in terms of need, economic, and also variety of a place to live. I mean,
Yeah.
of course, there are plenty of places where it's endlessly residential and a store on the corner, but maybe not. Maybe there could be a theater, for example, on the ground, on the first 3 floors, and then above residential, but it would have to reflect a different kind of zoning.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the larger discussion here is that there there's demand for lots of stuff. There's demand for parking. Um, and you know, business people should be allowed to build a parking garage to the extent there's demand. They can charge what they would like to make it work, to make it
Yeah.
profitable, right? But the idea with housing is that you have limited supply because you've made it not legal to build housing in a lot of places, right? So if you get rid of certain impediments, then the market can respond to the demand.
Okay, I'm
So,
sorry, wait a second.
but
What
hold
do
on.
you mean,
Go,
what
so,
do you
so
mean that it's impossible to build
I didn't
housing?
say
It is
impossible.
not impossible to build housing. Economically,
Okay,
it
good.
may not be
Okay,
able,
all I meant by that, Louisa, was to say that with going back to the parking part, we don't want to come in and say we don't want a parking garage here or there, right? All we want to do
Why
is
don't we?
make it possible is make it possible for the owner to make a choice to maybe add some housing to that site,
Wait a minute.
right? That's all all we can suggest here in the context of the Manhattan Plan is to say there's a site that has a parking garage which may or may not be closed. Why don't we zone it such that that owner could add some housing above that parking garage or to replace that parking
No.
garage,
Because,
Louisa,
right?
because the reality of it is that the cost of building over the garage, basically, you have to dismember the garage, and building parking garages isn't economical because it's the core and shell for residents. And for another $100 a foot or another $150 a foot, you get an apartment that you can do much better economically, whether it's affordable or whether it's market. There's no tax breaks for building parking lots. There are tax breaks and credits for building affordable housing. There is
Sure.
zoning
financing.
doesn't have anything to do with it. Every building that's being built nowadays, you notice, on the ground floor has commercial space. Whether it's been filled or not, it has commercial space.
Yeah,
A
And
lot of
many of the new
that's
times,
one
buildings
floor.
are
That's one
built with
floor.
garages. This is
Yeah,
not our concern. Our concern is just to identify spaces where, if the developer wishes, they could build residential.
yeah, I think, by the way, going back to Ethel's point, some of the districts that have been created have requirements for street floor retail, and whether
That's
that's
right.
whether it ends up being retail or a community use or a community facility or a socially oriented use, that whether it's 50 feet, 30 feet, or 100 feet, that makes the kind of life, the street life you want. So we should make sure that does happen, particularly if it's there now. Let's keep it there.
for sure. For sure. I agree.
Otherwise, we become the Upper East Side.
Yeah, I agree. You want street floor retail and other non-residential uses. But I mean, but some of these parking garages, especially the ones that are often closed, it's not just the first floor, right? It's like a 4 to 6 story building.
also, yeah, I
I
think
have- I
Shelley
have
had
another
his hand
site.
up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shelley, did you?
I have other sites to bring up.
Yeah, good.
Go ahead, please.
The one that I would have screamed about if we talked about it a year ago. Now my mind has changed because it is in 7 on 109th, 110th Street. Okay, we have a low-rise
Yes, yeah,
commercial building, and I thought it was going to remain because Spectrum moved in a large space on one corner, and CBS was at the other and
right.
in the middle. Well, now I figure they must have had 20-year leases, but Spectrum is gone. Okay, CBS is either gone or going, and that is a space that could have a high-rise building, who could zone it so it must have affordable. That's one. Across the street, and down the block between 109th and 108th, closer to 109th, there are stores which now have closed. Okay, there were vibrant stores there. The only problem with that space is to the rear is a part of the I don't know if it's the playground for PS one 109, it's 190,
165.
but they have theirs, and then there's another small yard, and I don't know if that's city owned or school owned. I've never saw it before.
That, I think you're thinking 165. You know, if you remember right, a couple years ago, Dan Cohn came
That's
down
right.
to talk to us about the 110th Street, because that's the borderline between his district and ours. And so there is that discussion to reanimate, and you can reanimate that one with two boards.
We
He
can
was
do-
looking
but we can
also
do it with
representing
one
the other
board.
board. He was also looking to modify a Con Ed plant or a partial one, and had worked on it quite a lot on Amsterdam Avenue, saying they wanted to see residential, and it didn't succeed. But it still remains as something of that could have, I hate to say it, mixed use. And whether the interesting thing about parts of the Upper West Side, right, is that there is a lot of residential, but it's not exclusively residential. It's also, I mean, we have the big parks, we have all sorts of other uses, and it makes for some pluses for living there. And the big thing is that the people living should not only be the rich people, but it can be important and should be that rather than 10 blocks of complete residential, it's residential and other uses. There could be, as I say, theaters, bookstores, other things, and new uses of the way people live and work in a new world.
Shelley, I think these two blocks are huge. I think they're maybe the biggest opportunity. They're clearly
Yes, I
soft,
agree.
clearly
You're
soft sites. They're right, immediately adjacent to the subway. It's a no-brainer
Yes.
to me.
It's
I
a
think-
good one. Yes, we should look, you're right, we should really look at it.
I mean, what's to look at? Let's just add it to the list, right? Isn't it clear that we want something huge?
No reason why not.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I think to me, the question becomes, because clearly something, dense should go there, but is how much? What is the zoning that
Yeah.
we would want to see there? What are, if anything, setbacks? Is it contextual? Blah, blah, blah. All those questions.
It's 109th and 110th. What is is that on an avenue? Which avenue is it?
It's on Broadway,
On
the
Broadway.
west side of 109 to 110, and then the east side between the middle of 108 to 109.
I think that there actually have been studies made of those blocks by some people, and I think I have some of them.
Yeah, I think those are outdated. You're talking about the Morningside Heights.
Yes.
Some of it,
Like
yeah, but I
everything
think
by-
there's
everything
by-
something else.
Very,
Yeah.
Everything by definition is outdated now. So-
Exactly. But they were, they were essentially doing a down zoning, but the only up zoning they were doing were these sites.
Yeah, I
exactly,
think that's
outside the
right.
district.
Exactly. And so I don't, we can certainly look back. I have those documents, but I don't
Well,
know that they're
it
going to
could
be that helpful.
instructive.
Well, if you want to reach slightly up and outside of our district, there's the Citibank corner too.
Wait, is that, where's that?
That's 111th.
Oh. Oh.
And the last thing we need is another bank. One less bank would be okay.
Oh, I
Right.
see. You're talking about the northwest corner.
But it does create that little district that would bridge both community boards.
Yeah,
Yeah.
think we should stay within our bounds and let
Yeah.
CB not nine do their
But it's
thing.
really the 110th Street subway district. Because the entrance to 110th Street station is actually not in our district, but the station physically is.
Oh, tricky.
The entrance is across the way on the west side.
I mean, I do think that there's a way in which we could think about it, and this does sort of go into there, but like maybe it's a 2-block radius around, I'm throwing out 2 blocks, but or maybe it's 1 block radius around the 110th Street and Broadway subway that we decide to, upzone to, I don't know, R10, R11.
I thought we might do something to allow for within a new building between 109th and 110th on the west side to have an enhanced station.
Mm,
Yeah,
Maybe that would be the place for the elevated.
yes.
I think some of that is actually being looked at very seriously. Yeah,
Well, no reason we can't encourage them to do it more seriously than
yes,
seriously.
that's what yeah, right.
But I don't think we should go outside our district.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay, so let's get 110th Street station in our district.
We'll create a station
I mean,
in our
it's
district.
physically in our district. We just can't get there.
Yeah.
There is another site. The Silver Moon Bakery closed down.
That's
And that was one of the few soft spots. That's 105th
And Broadway.
on the northeast corner.
yeah.
And
So
that-
and the
let me just finish. It was a soft site. There were 5 soft sites when we did the Upper West Side rezoning. That was one of them.
Right.
Now they've moved and become a bakery a little further down. So that spot is game, and there's short buildings nearby with probably air right transfers possible.
those
Magnolia Bakery take that over?
No, Buttercup Bakery.
Buttercup.
they
thank
moved down Broadway.
Yeah, to
That,
101.
that site you mentioned has actually been in play for a number of years. I knew somebody who was running around with that as an EB5 project.
Yeah, but it wasn't a piece of cake.
Well, that's because there was a bakery there. It was. Sorry. So
Okay.
I think some of these sites people are working on and may just be waiting. Oh, well, of course, by the same token, you have the southeast corner at 110th Street, which is a small site. But you know, if somebody wanted to do some things with this and move their rights around, they could.
Isn't that the school at Columbia?
No, that's 110th. I'm talking about 106th. Sorry.
You said 100. 106, yeah, that's where the physical fitness thing was on the second floor. It burned down. Now it's on the first floor. Yeah, it's a short building.
It's a small building, but one of the interesting things about it is it has very good light. It has the ability to have lots of units that aren't facing L.
Yeah, and it's a large street, cross
Yeah.
street.
And so because it's on 2 large streets, it has the benefit of all those privileges.
See?
Once again, these are private sites, and the question is, how do you get a private site to build something that's affordable given land values? That's the question.
Well, you can start by changing the zoning and giving incentives.
Yeah, that's what you have to do. You have to both identify the site and create the incentives. And we're just being asked, are we just being asked to identify the sites or identify the sites and say, by the way, you need to do, we really encourage you to do incentives. And we understand that the number of sites, if it's city land, you can be a higher level of affordable private land. We understand that you want economically mixed. And economically mixed can mean 60, 80, 100%, 120% of AMI. It still falls in the affordable, but it also helps having, some benefits having different income strata as compared to the regular HPD model, which is
Yeah.
you make 50 cents more, sorry, you don't qualify.
Yeah, we made the upper part of Broadway in our district 9A. Okay, inclusionary. So there's already a little bit affordability in there. But I think for the 910th site, we have to do something different.
Yeah, I
mean,
agree.
Yeah, well, the 109th, 110th site is not an infill site. It's something can actually change a neighborhood.
Right.
yeah,
No question.
And
yeah,
so we really want to understand what it is, even if I don't know if it's under one ownership or two ownerships.
That
Yeah.
actually is in the documents around Morningside Heights rezoning. I can dig that up and send that around.
But they may actually decide to come to terms with each other too, if it's.
Yeah. The opportunity is big enough.
But that one site or that two sites combined has a very big impact on the whole area.
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
But I think also, I mean, I think there's something to be said about knowing, like if we come out in support, let's say we're going back to 106th and Broadway, if we come out in support and say that, hey, we're willing to support a development and upzoning of this site with X amount of affordable housing, I think that is something that could hopefully generate some interest and some
Yeah,
action.
exactly. Yeah, I think so too. Maybe that's a good segue into the next topic of transferable development rights, where we had talked about, identifying certain avenues of transit corridors, where we have, increased density and increased air rights. So I think Seema, you had mentioned, for example, being able to transfer from, say, West End, right, where you're not likely to get, like you said, if you have a 20-story building, right, like my building, I live in a 20-story building on West End Avenue. They're not going to add 5 stories to the top of this building, right? Or they're not going to knock it down and build, 25 stories. But, they would be very incentivized to monetize those air rights and transfer them somewhere where we might think it's more useful. So I think that's a really good idea. I guess it just comes down to where are those zones?
Right. Where would they land, those air rights?
Yeah. So I guess the easiest places to start are, the avenues, right? Broadway, Amsterdam. We mentioned, so you can have, just a long corridor, or you can limit it to just around the subway nodes, right? Or the major cross streets, which are, I guess, the same thing, like 96th Street, 72nd Street, 79th Street.
Excuse me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. A TDR is attached to a historic structure. You have to have the historic structure
Right.
And
before you can do anything.
Yeah.
So what the city of Yes did was, instead of it being a site that is adjacent or across the street from a historic structure, you now can go,
Kitty.
down the whole block.
Yeah,
But it has to be tied to a historic structure. The other thing is a zoning lot merger, which is not a zoning thing at all. It is actually a legal real estate transaction
Right.
yeah, of adjacent sites though, right?
of adjacent sites. And a lot of times what happens now is somebody has a site on Broadway and they just buy the zoning, not the tax lots, but the zoning lots going all the way down the block of all the brownstones.
Yeah,
So if you have an R5, they can pick up, like, 2 stories from each building going down, and all of a
yeah,
sudden you have a uh,
Right.
much bigger building on Broadway.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the idea here was to expand on so have a new rule, right, that expands on those ideas that you just laid out. So instead of only being able to transfer from, you know, kitty corner or adjacent, you could take it farther to one of these special zones.
Yeah, the
Um,
prop, sorry.
or you could make it possible, it's not a historic district, right? These are things that we could propose.
Well, the thing with what they did in City of Yes was, yes, they expanded the ability to transfer, but there are two problems. A, you need someplace to transfer to, which is relatively
Yeah.
rare. And then the second problem is you generally need to be able to transfer it out of the historic district as well, or else that building, if it's inside the district, is still subject to LPC.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're going to be chasing all around the place. Now, the problem with the zoning lot merger, which is what Louise was just saying, 200 Amsterdam is a perfect example of a problem with that device, because there are congressional districts that are less gerrymandered in their plan than that zoning lot was. That zoning lot looks like a spider, and it has a leg that goes out 300 feet this way and 100 feet this way to an area that's 50 feet by 100 feet. It's fantastical. And I think that's still permitted as long as you have a 10-foot strip that connects everything. So,
Judge permitted it, and it consists of a lot of parking lots. It was
but that, as you
strange.
said, that is a useful tool, because it actually, if you do go down the block with a bunch of R7 row houses, you actually effectively preserve all of those row houses by moving it down the street.
Yeah.
And so that's a different kind of thing. The landmarks is
Can't
still
have
a
a row,
very, the
all seven
landmarks
rows.
thing is still a very rare thing, because you also, it's not just transferring, you also have to have a plan to preserve the designated landmark. And it only applies to designated landmarks.
Yeah.
So
So
it's not a great, it's not a great
Yeah.
tool unless you're Grand Central Station or St. Bartholomew's Church or something like, or, you know, St.
It's only
Patrick's.
meant to preserve landmarks.
yeah. So I think
Designated landmarks,
yeah.
which we have relatively few.
Yeah. So we're talking about the existing law, which has all the limits that um discussed. Um, but I think here we're at least contemplating a new rule, which would not be, I would say we should leave out the historic aspect of it, and just allow transfers to very specified zones. I put on screen here the landmark and historic map of the district. As you can see, it's pretty extensive, and it would preclude a lot of the transfers, for all the reasons we just spoke about. So going back to the West End example, I mean, there are a lot of buildings there that are 20 stories that are not landmarked. Um, uh, many of them are. But what if you could transfer the air rights without having to have a plan for preservation, and you could transfer them, to 72nd Street or 96th Street or and Broadway or wherever? What do you
Well,
think about that idea?
I mean, the thing is, they just widened it with City of Yes, so I don't know if the city's going to be happy to widen it 2 years later, but it's
Maybe.
possible.
Yeah,
It's
but I mean,
possible.
this would be a special rule for our district, and we would identify certain zones. I mean, I agree that it's a little bit out there, but I think the key would be that you're not what you're. I mean, people don't want more height in the mid block. People don't want it along, West End or certain places, but they are open to it in certain transit zones on the avenues. So it gets around that problem, right? So it's just an idea. that I think we should
Well,
consider.
I mean,
So
at
what
some
you're
point,
talking about is 72nd, 86th, 96th,
For
all the
example,
way
yeah.
park
Or
to
at,
park.
no, not necessarily. No, it could, I mean, so there are a couple things. You could do the cross street, the major cross streets, right? You could also just say, along Broadway between a certain area, or you could say a 3 block radius around the 96th Street subway station and the 103rd and the 110, oh, whatever, the 72nd. All these things are possibilities. Um,
Well, sorry, I was just interrupted by a call from my daughter, so I just had to do that. But on what you were saying, Ira, or others, have any of you looked at on 96th Street between Broadway and West End, the new building that's gone up, or is it 95th? And there it is completely, there's no setbacks, it occupies the entire block. And even by any convention, perhaps being old fashioned, it's ability, there are no setbacks. It goes on, it's just one
it's-
huge block and occupies, and it's the best guy, I don't know the other side, but it's quite significant in the change that it makes. And
Yeah.
maybe I'm the only one who visually is always shocked. How is that managed?
well, I mean, Ethel, it's not dissimilar to what happens on 86th Street or 79th Street of these big street walls on a wide
I know this
washed out
one
street.
seems more
It's just this one
significant.
is a very dramatic change from what we're all
Exactly.
used to.
Which
That's
which building
exactly
are we
right.
talking about? I'm sorry, what street or what address?
96th from Broadway to West End.
It's quite it's quite
on the-
domineering and quite, even though it's such a broad and active street in every way, it's immediately stunning, sort of shocking.
Do you
in
mean the
its
Fettner
impact.
building? No.
Yes,
It's the
Oh.
There's a Fetner building and the on
The corner.
96, the southwest corner, which is all looks like it's all glass and it goes straight up and it has, no good definition.
Right. I mean, we saw the Fettner building came to us, right?
I'm sorry, Seema, what did you say?
The Fettner building came to us with we gave feedback on their
That was the
facade.
one, that was the building with they didn't take any feedback. They came to us because they had one unit of inclusionary.
No,
That's-
you're talking
Right,
about
one
the
unit of-
96.
No,
That was
not
the
very
Fettner.
that wasn't
special.
Fettner.
The Fettner
That's the
came to
96,
us.
96 and Broadway, one unit.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah,
and they
that's-
took it from Riverside South. Yeah,
The Fettner building did take our feedback. I mean, I don't know if they
Yes,
did
it-
modify some stuff based on our feedback.
No
That's
question.
not the corner building. That I'm talking about the other one.
The one in
yeah,
the middle,
Yes. Yes.
and to maintain the landmark look,
Exactly.
what was there.
Yeah.
it's worth, I think, looking again at what you two have described and of that whole area, what has occurred with that, because it's instructive on some of the things we're talking about.
Well, by the way, you haven't, remember, the northwest corner of that intersection is pending,
Yeah.
I know,
and we don't know what's going there.
I know.
Extel.
I would not think it would not be dissimilar to what we see now. That'd be my expectation. And from what I understood more recently, our friend Mr. Barnett has his fingers in that one.
Yes.
Mm.
Sorry, I think I'm gonna have to leave, but I'll follow up with everybody. I'm sorry.
But I think we've gotten some stuff here that we need to pull together into a more coherent
Yeah, I'd
fashion.
like to talk to you, Ira, about some of the examples of what we've been talking about.
Okay, so I think let's try and finish up. If you have to leave, you can leave, but let's try and bring this to a close. I think, okay, so why don't we take a stab at drawing some corridors where we are open to more FAR, either for transfers or just straightforward rezoning. I think that's the next step.
Is that, Tabitha, I get that, but saying that, is that the primary next and more FAR? That's the exercise, or are there some other?
I mean, for this particular thing I'm mentioning, I mean, yes, in terms of the transferable development rights, and then that also, you know, would apply to just the rezoning part, which we haven't got to yet. But so either by transferring development rights or by rezoning, you would be, or if you're upzoning, by upzoning, you would be saying we're okay with more FAR in these areas. So I think a starting point for both of those notions is to first decide, or at least propose, some places where we're open to more FAR.
Is it upzoning and also saying and for affordable housing?
Yeah, the upzone.
Yeah, but
I would
that
say so.
becomes an important point.
It's
Exactly.
mandatory,
So
yeah.
yeah, it would be so I think we should only consider like MIHs, you know, like R11, R12. I mean that's my opinion. But I think that I think there's a consensus for that as well on the board. And so yes, I think that we should be considering, you know, inclusionary upzonings
Yes.
primarily, or if not only.
I would like, I mean, others, but the recent developments of 96th Street, Broadway, West, both sides, and so on, Fetter and all, would be, at least for me, and the big building that I just spoke about earlier, it would be worth it to me. I'll try to really do a study of what's happened. How did
Yeah.
this, because there's a lot that has occurred that I would really like to understand better how this could happen.
Yeah, and then
how
if
it could be.
there's zoning, yeah, then if you have zoning takeaways from that, then share them and we can apply that to what we're doing here. That's a good example. So
Yes,
if you don't want that building to be on 96 between Broadway and West End, okay, then how would you zone, you know, 86th Street so the same thing doesn't
Yeah.
happen? So
I mean, I would like,
that's
and
part of
that
the
would be-
exercise.
it would be subjective, but also objective. If I, seeing the one that I am poorly describing, but is very, very, very visible, and for me at least stunning, how did this happen? I would be sort of want to know, and then think about other intersections or wide streets and think, is it, would I just subjectively want to see the same kind of thing, and what kinds of actions would we have
Well-
to take? And is that valuable enough of affordability and bulk and so on?
Well, for example, think of the building at 86th and Broadway Northwest corner.
Yes,
Full block, but transfer that up to 109th and 110th Street,
right,
and then increase it by 20%.
exactly. Yes, thank you. Yes, exactly.
That's
Yeah,
what it
it's
is.
something we should do right away,
And-
you know, yeah.
And
Which
you have to
building-
decide if
Are you
that's
talking
what
about
you
the
want
Belmont?
or not.
Or the Belvedere? Which building are you talking about, Eric?
The
I'm
Boulevard,
trying to remember the name that they
The
give it.
Boulevard?
Boulevard.
Yeah, where the board office is, that building.
Yeah, where our offices are.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
exactly, that's an R10, and you'd be picking that building up and moving it up to exactly the same size site on 109th to 110th.
Yep.
And
And you might even get a subway entrance, just like on 87th, but in this case, you'll get it on,
and we
and
gave
then to
them,
get MIH, though, you'll get a 20%, might get 20% more.
Mhm.
we
And if you go
gave
to
them,
R11, you're gonna get more than 20% more.
we gave them a variance, and in return, we got our space.
For so long, you didn't get it forever.
Yeah.
So,
They also got a subway bonus
Right,
for the entrance on 87th Street.
right. So the guys on 100 on Broadway will put a subway entrance on 109th or somewhere on the mid block.
yeah, so
Within that
That's
new
why I said
building.
it's a perfect example of how it transfers.
I think that's actually a great example. Will really help people visualize, especially given it's our board office. So everybody is, at least knows the building.
Yeah.
I have a question for you just in terms of like practicalities and logistics. We have a fairly full agenda for our meeting next week. And the question is, it feels like there's so much to discuss here. We need some time to get all of our information compiled and in a presentable form. Do you think there's a tolerance for having another land use meeting just to talk about Manhattan Plan the last week of September?
Certainly not next week.
Not next, no, next week is our actual meeting.
Yeah, and then unfortunately, the next week is also kind of booked. It's a midweek event.
Yeah, so I do have I have an answer on the deadline question, Seema, which might
Oh.
inform this. There is no deadline. So I looked on the website, and then I even asked ChatGPT, and then I called them, and they said there's no set deadline for submitting ideas, but they said they're submitting their report by the end of the year. So I said, does that mean December? They said yes, probably in December. So I know that before, when they introduced this to the boards, they said, we would like feedback by early fall, September, October.
Right.
But that might have just been, to say, they put that out there, but in reality, they would take recommendations even later than that. There's also like the election coming up and stuff. So, off the record, they said, if your board were to pass it, the beginning, with that first meeting in November, right? The first Tuesday, whatever that day is, that would not be too late.
Really?
And they said, especially because, they would already, they're also obviously going to be paying attention if our committee passes it in October, right? That's public, right?
Mhm.
So it's kind of like, with City of Yes, we passed it in the committee, but it never got to the board. They told me like off the record that would not be too late. That of course they would like it sooner, but they said they'd rather have, because also of course anyone can just submit. So Ira, if you want to just submit this document as it is, then say anyone can do it. But it's because it's more meaningful. They'd rather have us reach a consensus as a committee and a board,
Right.
and then submit that. That's way more helpful to them than not doing it that way. And she's like, yeah, they understand that that summer just happened, right? We're just getting back to it. And they'd rather have us go through the process. So if we can have a vote with the November meeting of the full board, that would not be too late. So that would mean we're voting on something. We're voting on something in October.
That's gonna be hard.
But it's still, I mean, I think either way, whether we have a meeting or not, I do think we need to introduce this to people prior to that October meeting, right?
Yeah, I agree.
So I don't want to interrupt you. I just want to interject that as you are.
No, that's super helpful. So maybe we can, I don't want to keep everyone, maybe we can sort of brainstorm about how best to, we can certainly send out when we're ready to the materials, and maybe we have some other informal session.
Yeah, so it might be things I'm just brainstorming here. It might be that this group puts together something written that is emailed out and then we can discuss it in October. It gives people, a few weeks, right?
Right.
Or it could be that we do have a second meeting in September at which we present our ideas.
And then vote on it in October, like have another
Yeah,
conversation.
exactly.
Okay.
So yeah, but we can talk about it, and figure something out. But I think the main thing here is us to work on these work streams. So in terms of visualizing, so to what Ira was talking about, what's the best way to present things like transfers to allow people to visualize changes, physical changes in like the streetscape. For the parcels, Google Map, I think, is the perfect way. But for something like looking at zoning changes and stuff, what's the best way to present it? Is it a map?
The
Why
easiest
don't we
way,
think about that?
you can tell Google Maps so you get the massings, and you can pencil in what the massing would look like.
Okay.
That's an easy way to do it. Unfortunately, my computer skills are not what they would have been a few years ago, nor what they should be today.
Okay. I can
But
try
I
and
have a pen.
yeah, there's probably a way, like an easy software.
I mean, I think the first step, we should just work in 2 dimensions to start. And then to the extent that we have the time to make it pretty, we can work on a more axonometric view. So for the upzonings or the sort of receiving sites, if you will, for if we pursued the TDR idea, or if we just decided a straight upzoning, I think just highlighting on Google Maps, what are the blocks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the
We're
thing is,
thinking
at the
of.
stage we're at, it would take us a lot more thought to figure out what would actually be the right district.
Right, zoning, you mean, or district? What do you mean, district?
Like, for example, if we said this site should be upzoned. The question is, what zone should you upzone it
Yeah.
for?
Right.
And that's a whole greater discussion that you would
It's
get
very
into when
difficult.
Mueller was actually sitting there as a potential.
Yeah.
I think we should take the conversation as far as we can go, and maybe it's only as far as it should be upzoned with mandatory inclusionary housing. And
Yeah,
we look at
you
that
could.
for-
I don't know what skills we have within the board or what we can grab outside, but you could do a minimum and a maximum scheme so that people could see what the lowest MIH is versus what the maximum MIH is without going to 12. But for
I
example,
like
if
that.
it's R9 now and you go to R10, that makes an MIH. And so what does that R10 MIH look like versus R11 MIH?
Hmm.
I like that idea, and I think with those blocks on Broadway that Shelley first mentioned, the 109 to 110, 108 to 19,
Yeah.
maybe those are the places that we do that kind of effort on.
One of the things we did, and obviously a couple of people on this call know that, is that when we did 108th, we actually, and if anybody remembers, we represented that we were not actually doing the district that we were asking for. We actually scaled back from that district. There were a lot of things we wanted from that district, but there was no district that was exactly what we needed. In the case of a private developer or even a nonprofit developer who has a different economic model and less access to public subsidy, it's a lot harder for them not to build the max unless there are technical issues. And sometimes there are technical issues that hold you back, that make things much more expensive. You have to throw another elevator, or you need a site safety manager, and it builds the cost up very quickly. So you might actually not build the full FAR.
Let's
but-
try to keep it simple.
But anyway, with all that said, you don't necessarily. Most people try to build the full FAR that's available.
Right.
Some people don't, because doesn't make sense. what their,
Okay.
what their goals are.
Okay,
I can help with that, Sweta.
yeah, so I'm looking, there's a few, so DCP has a land use mapping tool. Yeah, I'll email you.
Mhm.
I'll look into this a bit and I'll send out an email about this. And I'll loop you in too, Seema.
Sounds good.
Okay, so for work streams here, so I'll work on that. And then in terms of looking into these garage sites and other more generally commercial sites that could potentially be changed or rezoned, does someone want to look into those?
I'll do that.
Okay, so yeah, okay. So we had 83rd, 100, okay, you can look into those. Bloomingdale, we know what's going on there. This is a meeting Monday.
Oh, we don't know, but we'll know more on Monday, we hope.
That's what I mean. I mean, we know our plan going forward. We're gonna ask questions and attend that meeting. Okay. Oh, and then so I did as we were talking. So the ADU idea came from a friend of mine, and I had misunderstood. He was actually, so you guys are correct, not surprisingly. So yes, the interior ADUs in row houses are allowed. But what's not allowed is what you mentioned, which are backyard ADUs are not allowed in historic districts.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we want to propose that,
right.
unless anyone disagrees.
I think we fought against it, actually.
That's
Yeah,
right. Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll leave that out. I'll just delete that.
I could do an analysis of the 109, 110th.
Okay, yeah, please do that. And then the SROs, Seema, you said you have language,
Yes,
and the legal articles.
yes,
You want to just put that together like into a couple bullet points?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Um,
Shelley, do you need anything from the Morningside Heights rezoning stuff for the 108, 109? Or should we talk offline?
Maybe, yeah, maybe.
Okay.
I don't think I do, but it can't hurt.
Okay,
Thank you.
I think
Sure.
I have some of it.
Good.
okay, and then all right. So then, Seema, do you want to? You and I can talk like on maybe like on Friday during the day,
yeah. And
and
I'll
then
also, by the way, clean up my Google Maps list to
Okay.
include, I think I'm missing some schools and such.
let's you and I talk on Friday, and then we'll about like the plan for the next whether we're gonna have a meeting or not.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thanks everyone for your ideas. I
Thank
think
you.
this,
Thank
I
you,
think this was
Tabitha.
Thank you, everyone.
productive, I think. And yeah, we'll be in touch.
Okay.
Okay, bye-bye.
A
Bye.
productive meeting.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yep.